All right, I've just started to record. And so there is the wrong kind of action taken, and there is also a time delay. Probably because of this, things could have become worse, right? Instead of a single casualty, multiple casualties could have happened, or widespread damage could have happened, right? Also, Saram's voice is breaking. Saram, I've tried both the networks once. I don't know what it is. Okay, I'll speak now. Let's see if it works. Is it any better? Okay, Nitin. Thank you. Is there any part of it that you want me to repeat? Okay, Vijay has earlier told to know roles. Excellent answer, Vijay. So when you develop emergency procedures, you're assigning some responsibilities, right? So to some people, so that they are able to take that necessary action during when there is an emergency. So they also the reason is to assign roles and responsibilities. Okay, what I wanted to originally say was, if that emergency procedure was not developed, probably things would get worse rather than it preventing any further losses. All right. Do you think emergency procedures also reduce panic? Okay, I'm sure you'll agree that it also helps to reduce panic. Panic is the worst thing to do to have during an emergency. It doesn't allow you to think clearly, right? So let's look at the slide. To mitigate consequences, to limit damage to people and property caused by an accident, safety of the workers who deal with emergency, and safe evacuation of others as well. Yeah, that's a good point. It may be a legal requirement that you have these emergency procedures in place. It could affect your business reputation when accidents happen. So, because of the emergency procedure, you're able to improve your industrial relations and public relations. Reduction in downtime loss, so business continues because of your emergency procedure. That's a very valid point. Safety awareness of the workers, avoiding panic, and you're able to train happy workforce. That improves the morale of the workforce also. And you're here considering not only your work site but also the safety of members of public and other businesses in your neighborhood. So what needs to be included in the emergency procedure? Okay, correct. Okay, so we will see what needs to be included in your emergency procedure. I could say there are about 4 or 5 things that needs to be included. First of all, will you write the procedure itself? The action that needs to be taken. So if you want, you can make a note. Does your book give you the various arrangements that need to be made, or various things that needs to be included in your procedure? Can somebody tell me the page number, please? In your book, in my book, it could be a little different. In mine, it is 53. Okay, in yours is 56. Okay, go. So it is not really giving it in giving it this way. So what needs to be in your emergency procedure? You can make a note of it if you like. First of all, the procedure that needs to be followed. Okay. Next, you would be ensuring that the necessary equipment is available, and emergency equipment, which could be different for different emergencies. Okay. Also, the next thing that you will have to include is the roles and responsibilities of your emergency response team. You're going to assign those responsibilities, isn't it? So, responsibilities assigned to the emergency response team. Next point is training, information, training and information, we can say. And the last point is drills and exercises. All right. So we'll discuss these points. Procedures to be followed. Do you think the procedures are different for different emergencies? The action that you need to take, would it be different for different emergencies? Yes, isn't it? So you will need to clearly write down. Yeah, thank you. So you need to clearly write down the procedures. For a fire, probably you will run out of the building. When there is a bomb threat, probably you'll find a space which is away, does not have glass walls or windows. You'll find a place which has solid walls and get in there, right? So the procedure could be different for different emergencies. So you'll write down the procedure. There may be many equipment that is required. Okay. There may be many equipment required. So you will need to purchase those equipments and ensure that they are available in required numbers. Not only, required numbers. Next is a nomination of responsible staff, where you're going to identify what are those roles required. Okay, maybe there is for a fire hazard, you will need the fire warden or a fire marshal. Okay, but for a fall from height, you may require rescue people, somebody who's fallen from the safety harness, but he's dangling in the air. So you need somebody to go and rescue him, isn't it? So you need rescue personnel there. Let's say for an electric shock hazard, now the person has become unresponsive. So probably you need a first aider there, or a medic if he is available, right? So like this, there are many roles, and they need to know what their responsibilities are for that particular emergency. So you will be giving them that, assigning those responsibilities. Next is to train and inform. So training has to be given to your emergency response team, those who have some special responsibilities on that day of emergency, and the other rest of the gang, like rest of your employees who may not be part of the emergency response. Even they require some training. What I mean to say is that I'm not part of the emergency response team, but yet, will you give me some training on what action needs to be done? Will you give me some information at least on what I need to do in case I see a fire? What I need to do in case I hear a fire alarm, right? So you need to give me some information. I'm not even part of the emergency response, but you'll have to train your emergency response team on how to use the equipment, what is the procedure to be followed, when will you decide that it is now beyond your control and therefore you have to call the external emergency services. Somebody has to take that call, right? So this is the information that you will be giving to the emergency response team. Yeah, emergency helpline number and all that. Next is drills and exercises. Why is it that you have to conduct a mock drill? Why is it not enough if you just did a training and gave some information? Check the effectiveness, check preparedness. Okay, very good. Somebody's mind is up. Prepare people. Okay. All right. Correct. Evaluation of the training given. Correct, Swapnil. To check the evacuation time. Very good. Good one, Saira. It may be a legal requirement. Okay. Exercise real-time emergency scenario. Correct, Rahul. How persons are physically and mentally active for an emergency. Very true, Sachin. Vasu says, ensure all the emergency equipment are in condition. Somebody's mic is unmuted. Sarah. Okay. I muted you, Sarah. All right. So good. So there are many reasons like this, isn't it? So whatever we learn in training, we may not remember. Like what you learned yesterday, you may not remember today. Correct? So when you practice it, the theory becomes practical. And when you get hands-on, then you're able to remember what you need to remember better. All right. So that's one reason. Almost like it becomes second nature. You probably have heard that in Japan, the kindergarten children, okay, they're such tiny ones. They know what is the action to be taken when they hear the tsunami alarm. They know what the action needs to be taken when they hear the earthquake alarm. Okay, so how is it that such tiny tots know about what needs to be done? It's because they have been trained, but more than training, they have also been practicing it very, very frequently. All right, so that has become, yeah, Vijay, correct. So that has become their second nature, we can say. So that's why practicing or conducting these drills is very important. And also, what you have said is very true. You need to know how long it takes for everybody to evacuate. You also need to know how people are reacting during the evacuation time. There was one video in which of course it's funny, but it's true. If the fire alarm is on, and people are starting to evacuate, but there is a lady opening her bag and taking out the lipstick and applying it and everything. She just wants to look good even during emergency evacuation, right? So that's funny, but you don't know how people will react. So this gives you an observation. Also, during the drills, you're able to find out whether the safety equipment that is available is working on that particular day, right? And you're all finally able to give feedback to the management whether you're ready for the emergency, if there is anything that needs to be improved, any equipment that needs to be purchased for the roles required, for the training required, etc. Right? So these are some reasons. Prashil says people need to know where the exits are. Correct. So these are some reasons why emergency drills have to be conducted. Also, one of the arrangements that you have to do is contact of external emergency services. If it's a hospital, or if it's an ambulance service, or it's a fire brigade, whatever it may be. Or even if you are dealing with chemicals. So you may need a specialist to do the cleanup of chemical spillage, that kind of external services you will need to be ready with. So their contact information, their address and phone number, all those are part of contact information, and ensure that the emergency procedures are reviewed. And these contact numbers, whenever they change, please ensure that that is also updated. And you have like a tie-up with them, that in case of an emergency, we'll call you and you should be ready to help us. And ensure that you have identified services who are equipped to give you that kind of assistance. Okay, so that is your emergency services. Rashid says, members of public should also be known about off-site emergency. Very true. If there are I think you have some idea about the Bhopal gas tragedy, isn't it? So if people had known how to react to this particular gas leak, they had no idea at all what was killing them. Okay, so what do I need to do to protect myself? If they had known, probably there would have been lesser loss of lives. Yes, correct. And it may be a moral responsibility for employers to communicate to the people in the neighborhood what kind of emergencies may arise. If you hear this kind of a sound, it means this particular alarm. This is what you need to do when you hear this particular alarm, and this is how it sounds. That kind of information you can. Vijay, tell me about that Vizag incident, Vijay. Unmute and speak to us.
Hello.
Hi, Vijay. We can hear you.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am.
Evening.
Due to gas leak, ma'am. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Proceed.
At the midnight 3 o'clock, the gas has been leaked due to mechanical failure.
Okay.
At that time, the plant was not running. Only the emergency team, like essential service people, are there in the plant. They didn't know that the gas might be leaking or else some mechanical failure. Recently, we had in the investigation report. That's what I know, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. I thought you were giving that as an example for
off-site emergency plan, ma'am.
Sorry, ma'am. Sorry, what's that?
Off-site emergency plan.
Yeah. So I thought your explanation will tell about how people responded or people didn't respond.
Yeah. Yeah, ma'am. All of them people are in deep sleep at the 3 o'clock morning.
Mm.
9 people were in a serious condition, and 40 people admitted in the hospital. And
So,
recently in one country, another blast also happened recently. I exactly don't know the country name. Organ leakage or something happened.
It affected the neighborhood, you're saying?
Hello?
Yeah, it affected the neighborhood, you're saying, Vijay?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay.
It's all of innocent people have got resulted in this activity.
Yeah. Okay, Vijay, fantastic example. Thank you very much.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, so those are about emergency procedures. What to include in your emergency procedure? So these are those various details that needs to be included in your emergency procedure. We've discussed all this. Okay, so let's proceed. Why people need training in emergency procedures? We spoke about some points. Let's also see what the slide says. Quick and effective actions may help to ease the situation and reduce the consequences. Training is essential to ensure that everyone knows what to do when there is an emergency or disruption of business operations. Everyone needs training to become familiar with protective actions for life safety. For example, evacuation, shelter in place and lockdown, etc. Review protective actions for life safety and conduct evacuation drills as per local regulations. Okay. Employees should receive training to become familiar with safety, building security, information security, and other loss prevention programs to develop their awareness and understanding of the specific hazards and risks. Okay. There are possible vulnerable people at workplaces such as visitors who are usually unfamiliar with the alarm pattern and what they signify. So training can develop awareness and the actions to be taken. Apart from satisfying legal obligations, several benefits will accrue to the employer by provision of sound information and training your employees. Finally, an organization should conduct mock exercises to mimic an emergency. These mock drills will help the organization to understand the following. Is the emergency procedure working as expected? Have people at all levels understood their roles and responsibilities? Did the emergency staff operate the emergency equipment correctly? And did the equipment function as desired? So these are things that you can confirm when you conduct the mock drills. Okay, so that topic was about emergency procedures. Let's also talk about first aid. Can somebody tell me what is first aid?
Immediate assistance given to a casualty before the doctor arrives.
Very nice. Excellent. Thank you. And when you say immediate attention, somebody, Vijay, is saying immediate treatment given to a victim. Okay. When you say immediate attention, if I was the person, who first saw the victim, and I was saying, "Don't worry, I've called the first aider. Don't worry, I've called the ambulance." If I said that, would that also be first aid? It's no. Isn't that giving him some kind of a, if not physical treatment? At least it makes him assured that there is somebody there to help him, right? First aiders consider that this kind of a support that you do is also an immediate attention that you're giving to the victim. So that is also considered part of first aid. Okay, let's look at the aim or the purpose of first aid. You can see that there are 4 P's here. Okay, the first P is to preserve life, also to prevent deterioration. Meaning, if you did not do that, give that first aid, situation would become worse for the victim. So, to prevent deterioration, to help him to recover, promote recovery is to help him to get back to his normalcy. Okay, and and provide treatment of minor injuries that do not require any further medical attention. We can also say aim of first aid is to reduce pain. Okay, so these are some points you can think about when thinking of what is the need for first aid or what is the purpose of first aid. So this is very important. Okay, let's see if you have this in your book. What to consider when deciding on first aid needs in your workplace. I think it's there. Right after emergency procedures that needs to be tested. Why emergency procedures need to be tested? Next set of points. Thank you, Saira. So that's for you, page number 57. Okay, so what needs to be considered when deciding on the first aid needs in your workplace? You can also say the factors that needs to be considered when deciding on the level of first aid requirements for your workplace. Okay, we can also say factors that needs to be considered on deciding on the level of first aid provision. So when I say level of first aid provision, what do I mean? I'll take an example to explain that. You are, let's say, an offshore drill project. You are in the offshore drill project. Okay. In such a location, which is in the middle of the sea, is there any hospital nearby? I'm sure you will say no, right? And does it make sense for you to have a medic or at least an occupational nurse on your rig in your workplace? Yeah, Asu says yes. Okay, others are also saying yes. Now, don't you think this is a very high level of first aid provision to have a medic, to have an occupational nurse? Right? It's a very high level of first aid provision. Whereas, let's say there is a workplace in the middle of the city. Okay, there are many hospitals in a radius of 5 kilometers. Okay, there are many hospitals. Do you need to employ a medic? Or is a first aider enough? Okay, yeah. So you agree that I don't need a doctor in my workplace sitting there as a permanent, a person, but rather a first aider will do. You think, right? Or you may even decide that, a first aider will do. So why did you think so? Because of your geographical location. So the geographical location becomes a factor that for you to have considered what is the level of first aid arrangements required for your workplace. I hope you understand the topic. Do you understand the topic? Yeah. So these are some factors I'm going to consider. I'm going to think about when I decide whether I need a high level of first aid provision or a simple one is okay. Right? All right. So that is the topic. Now let's look at those factors. Size of the organization, that is number of workers. Why can you explain why number of workers needs to be considered as a factor? Why do you need to consider number of workers? Legal reasons. Arun, can you elaborate a bit? What do you mean by legal reasons? Nitin says casualties will be more in an emergency. Okay. To take proper action for establishment of first aid room or first aid station, multiple injuries arising. Okay. Very nice. Abhijit says decide on the capacity of the medical test. Okay, that also. All right.
Ma'am, it's that in an organization, if the workers are more and the nature of the work is a very hazardous area, so if in the case of an emergency, there's a major chance that most of the workers will be under the risk profile. So if it is a very if the organization is having like only one or two first aiders, that is not going to treat all the majority of the workers. So it depends upon the size of organization to decide.
To decide, sorry, Vasu, last bit I didn't hear. To decide?
To decide the number of first aids and the first aiders as well as the first aid needs.
Okay, excellent, Vasu. Thank you. I also wanted Arun to elaborate a bit on the legal requirements. So both of your points are somewhat similar. So if you have more number of employees, then you have to have more number of first aiders. Okay, simple logic. And what does the law say? You may be referring to your country's law, which may say that for every 100 workers, one first aider is required. All right, but the standard may say for every 50 workers, one first aider is required. As a company rule, you may decide for every 25 workers, I'm going to have a first aider. Right? So now, probably, as Arun said, you may want to consider legal requirements, or you choose to consider a standard. All right, whichever is working for you. So therefore, number of workers is a factor to consider. The nature and distribution of workforce. What does this mean? Nature and distribution of workforce. Where there are more number of workers in a particular area, would you naturally want to have more first aiders? Right, in that particular department, there are more number of workers, so you'd want to have more first aiders in that area. Yeah, hazardous or non-hazardous would be the nature of work that is going on. Very true, Prashant. Nature of work, hazard and the risk profile. Okay, shift patterns. Do you want to cover all shifts? Meaning, if there are 3 shifts going on in the work site, would you want to have first aiders available on all shifts? Yeah, very good. Okay, that's what that particular factor means. Past accident and injury types. What does this tell you when you're looking at the previous, what type of accidents have happened in the past? What does that tell you? Or rather, why are you considering that factor? So you can be prepared with the specific first aid arrangement that is required. Okay, if there are more fall from height hazards in the workplace, okay, so what I mean is more fall from height accidents have happened in the workplace, then you would be ready with that kind of an first aid provision, right? So you want to if there is more electric shock happening, you may want to even invest in an automated external defibrillator. Because electric shock can cause cardiac arrest, right? So you would need an AED. So this will, looking at the accident numbers and the type of accidents, can tell you what kind of actual first aid equipment that may be required in the site. Location relative to hospitals. I think we spoke about this, no? Whether there is a hospital in the nearby areas, or are we in a very remote place? This will decide on how much first aid arrangements are necessary. Traveling remote lone workers. For lone workers, if you remember, when we spoke about lone worker control measures, we had training them to be a first aider themselves. And they're also providing a first aid kit in their hand, right? So that's why you're considering traveling remote and lone workers. The need to train people in special procedures. What is the training that you need to give for your first aider? You're considering that also. Need to cover in absence of first aiders, meaning first aiders can go on leave. So you need to have somebody who will take over when that particular first aider is not available. Okay, so you're going to consider that also when you're deciding on how many first aiders are required. What is the level of first aid provision required in your work? Okay, so that's about first aid. So we've come to the end of element 3. Next is element 4. Okay, before which, let's see what is this activity all about. I'm going to go back. Activity number 5. What does it expect you to do? Choose one of the workplaces and write an emergency response plan for the same. Okay, can you do this as homework? Oh, by the way, we are supposed to discuss yesterday's homework, no? Okay, we can discuss the yesterday's homework now. and you can make a note of what you need to do with activity number 5 in page number 18 in participant activity handbook. This is, I can't see the slide. Okay, Vijay, let me stop sharing and start again. Are you able to see now? Okay, funny. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so have you turned to page number 18 in the activity handbook? What does it ask you to do? Learners can select any one of the following workplaces and write a brief on emergency response plan. So what are the 4 workplaces? One is a university, a chemical plant, warehouse, multi-story office building. Okay, so you can choose any one of these 4 workplaces and write the emergency response plan. Okay, what should the emergency response plan include as details? You can see at the bottom of the same page, type of emergencies that that the university will face or the warehouse will face, that kind. Type of emergencies, the equipment required, roles and responsibilities, training that you'll give, and mock drills. Okay, so write as detailed as possible. So that's your homework. Now let's go discuss about the homework I gave you yesterday. Yesterday's homework was how poorly or how well was the management of change or the change managed in the Flixborough accident or the workplace where this accident happened. Who would like to explain?